Most Yellowstone fans have been eagerly looking forward to Kevin Costner's new docuseries made in the wake of celebrating Yellowstone National Park's 150th anniversary, but it looks like the series seems to have made a few historical changes that are interesting to say the least. In this video, we'll talk about how Kevin Costner's Yellowstone documentary for Fox has a lot of wrong ideas about history, so let's begin. First up, is the documentary's narrative based on facts? Kevin Costner's new docuseries, Yellowstone 150, may have everything that's needed to make a fantastic nature-based documentary, from lush landscapes and adorable animals to the very charming host himself. Yellowstone 150 may tell an amazing story about the national park, but unfortunately, the history that's explored in this is almost entirely false. Yellowstone 150's narrative focuses on famed scientist Ferdinand Hayden's exploration of Yellowstone dating all the way back to the summer of 1871. We know this primarily because Costner keeps referring to 2 journals and about 10 letters that the expedition left behind, which he also uses to quote from. Now, Costner comes across as much more relaxed and good-natured on screen compared to his usual demeanor that we're used to seeing in the permanently miserable John Dutton. He tells us stories about his childhood in California, and jokes with the cameraman that make you see a whole new side of him. Up next, do we sense a change in political beliefs? And even though Costner has been quite vocal about the fact that his political beliefs are a lot more liberal than fictional Dutton's, we still found one similarity that both the actor and the character seem to share the same views on. Now, Costner and Dutton seem to believe that the actual West and the fictional Yellowstone show West, along with all the pioneers living in it from the past and present, are somewhat the little guys. These little guys seem to be enraged by the government, big capital, and as Costner claims, some other powerful entities who wanted the land for themselves. Honestly, hearing the man say these words out loud didn't feel like Kevin Costner talking. It was more like John Dutton had taken over his soul as the host. Moving on to Hayden's expedition, now the docuseries contains all of the iconic sites from Yellowstone, the Grand Prismatic Spring, the Lower Falls, and the Lamar Valley. There's no doubt that the footage of animals frolicking about and all of nature in its glory is absolutely stunning and vivid. You'll see bison sniffing the grass, wolves running in packs, and river otters swimming about while the music swells, going from background ambiance to full-on melodrama, complete with grand violins and crashing cymbals. The minute the camera returns to Kevin Costner's charismatic face, we know it's time for a history lesson. The series' central argument is that the US Congress initially sent Hayden and his team to tear apart the park in the name of progress, but Costner argues that during the expedition, Hayden went through a change of heart considering the environmental phenomena that is Yellowstone. He then began lobbying congressmen to pass an act to recognize and preserve Yellowstone as a national park. What's more, is there any truth to this story? Like most of Yellowstone 150's content, this story does have some truth to it. Costner is right in the fact that Hayden was not an environmentalist, at least not initially. Like others, he too was a federal surveyor in the US West at the time to figure out whether white Americans could ranch, farm, or mine the land. But the real truth is that Hayden was actually never an environmentalist at all. While his Yellowstone expedition did change and convince him that the region was unique in all kinds of aspects, his views ended with the fact that he needed to do more scientific research on it. None of the communication from either him or his team members indicated that Hayden believed Yellowstone should be preserved as a national park. The idea actually came from big capital, not him. Let's talk about the investment banker and the scientist. As Hayden was coming back from Yellowstone, Jay Cook, an investment banker who was working on heading up the financing for the Northern Pacific Railroad, had one of his PR employees write to Hayden. After discussing the scientist's expedition with a political ally, he made a suggestion to Hayden to let Congress pass a bill that would preserve the Great Geyser Basin as a public park for the rest of eternity. The letter claimed that if Hayden agreed to this idea, he should probably add this suggestion in the official report of his survey. So what does that tell us? Well, as Costner claims in the 3rd episode of the docuseries, America's best idea didn't come from the little guys going against the impossibly huge opponent that is the United States government. In fact, the idea simply stemmed from a shrewd businessman who wanted to bring as many tourists as he could to the area, which Hayden was more than amiable to lobby for. For Preserving Yellowstone as a national park was a win-win situation for everyone. Cook would get his tourists, and Hayden would get a scientific laboratory for the rest of his life, following up with the wrong idea of history. This is where Yellowstone 150 deviates from the truth, which is that Hayden's expedition was a full-on federal project. He had orders from the Department of the Interior and very real congressional funding. He and his team were able to take the Transcontinental Railroad to Utah and even had a 2nd Cavalry protective detail out of Fort Ellis, which we all know is a federal installation. Even his Yellowstone survey report was actually printed and distributed by the government printing office. And let's not forget the passage of the Yellowstone Act itself. The only legislators who voted against the act were conservative Democrats who objected that it was a violation of white settler land rights. Now, Costner doesn't even mention this vote at all at any time in the 4 episodes or why Hayden was so successful in lobbying for the passage of the act. Most liberal Republicans were actually in favor of it. They had all already voted to give Hayden the money needed to explore the region, and some had even sent their own sons along with his team to work as assistants in the expedition. Talk about national interests, right? Let's talk about the audience and what they'd like to see. But this just isn't the kind of narrative that would appeal to the audience that pays for Fox Nation streaming services, obviously. Their viewers mainly want to gaze across the Mammoth Hot Springs and the Lower Falls, but might not want to delve into the actual truth. The truth which claims that the American federal government has actually done some pretty fantastic and history-changing things for the country. We think the same audience wants to buy Costner's version of the truth, which claims that Hayden single-handedly fought the powers that be to win this one for the regular man. And for a docuseries like Yellowstone 150 to confidently make such bold statements as historical facts while mixing them with a few truths here and there is quite unethical. At this point, not even the cutest of river otters could distract us from the real, cold, harsh truth. Moving on to Yellowstone, the show. Lately in the new season of Yellowstone, we've seen more and more of John Dutton's younger self, and we've decided to dig into who's playing the role of the younger version of the family's patriarch. As John Dutton prepares to take on the mammoth role as the governor of Montana, fans have gotten a glimpse into what his past has been like. Clearly, he's been heavily involved with the livestock team and the sheriff for a really long time. In the latest flashback, we see young John Dutton talking to angry ranchers who are complaining about their dead cattle at a public hearing. Now, more about the actor who plays him. John Dutton is played by 51-year-old Josh Lucas, an actor from Arkansas who's best known for his performances in Sweet Home Alabama, American Psycho, and The Lincoln Lawyer. Both his parents worked in the medical industry, which probably owes to him moving around a lot as a child. By the time he was 13 years old, he'd lived in over 30 different locations. After finishing high school, Lucas decided to move to Hollywood to pursue a career in acting, and well, looks like he's been keeping quite busy. Thanks to his work in the new season, fans have been calling for the star to take the lead role in a prequel for the show, and we agree with them. Other than his TV work, he's also a pretty good voiceover artist and owns a company called Filthy Food with 2 of his friends. As for his love life, Lucas was married to freelance writer Jessica Ciensin Enriquez, but the 2 ended up divorcing in 2014. Well, whether Josh takes center stage as a young John Dutton in a completely separate prequel show remains to be seen. That's a wrap for this video. Do you have any thoughts on the wrong ideas about history in the new Yellowstone documentary? Please let us know in the comments below, and while you're down there, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.